Well, it finally happened. I've been trying to write the story for years, but I think I'm stuck in planning hell. I've spent hours planning out the characters, and I've built an entire world for this book. I've built cities and little towns and huge sprawling landscapes. And for what? I've detailed out every single story beat that's supposed to happen, every alliance and betrayal and setup and resolution and climax, and I've tried so many plot frameworks. But something in my brain won't let me start writing. I'm stuck in planning hell. Hello everyone and welcome back to Writing Theory. My name is Carson Long and I'm going to take you through my planning process for writing a book. This video goes into a couple tips and tricks for creating nice and realistic characters, realistic worlds, and creating a series of events for your plot that all build to a big climax. And when we're done with this, you'll be totally prepared to write your book. It's easy. If you build it, they will come. If you do the planning, it will be easy to write. But you know what isn't easy? Editing. But you can make it easier with our sponsor, Pro Writing Aid. Pro Writing Aid helps you bring your story to life with easy and powerful writing feedback. I bought my own lifetime license 4 years ago because I knew that Pro Writing Aid would be a critical part of my writing process. Desktop Everywhere lets you get writing feedback anywhere that you can enter text. And this means that Pro Writing Aid integrates with Scrivener and Microsoft Word and Google Docs and anywhere that you want to write. Pro Writing Aid goes beyond spelling and grammar. Use their reports to get detailed feedback on everything from sentence variety and style and readability. The critique report is an insanely detailed report that looks at the content of your story and gives you feedback regarding your pacing and your dialogue and your characters and more. You can even change your style of writing and get more specific feedback based on that style. And that means that you can use Pro Writing Aid when you're writing papers for school or work emails or content online. Pro Writing Aid is a tool that every writer needs to make sure that they are writing to the very best of their ability. Use my code WritingTheory10 at checkout and get 10% off of your order. Thanks to Pro Writing Aid for supporting small creators. So let's start with characters. Characters are complex. Every story is inherently a human story. And the humans in your story, or characters doesn't necessarily need to be humans, need to be realistic. When planning a story, you need to get every single detail down about who this character is. And there are so many character sheets out there that you can get access to that vary on exactly what information you need to know about your characters. But it's all important. Planning out a character is simply a matter of putting yourself in the mindset and extracting the detail of a realistic person. What are their fears and desires and wants and needs and motivations and more? And the more questions you ask that character, the more answers you discover, creating a better, rounded picture of that character. Where were they born? What was the relationship with their parents or siblings like? What's their personality type? What's their dominant hand? What's their favorite color? What's their favorite outfit? Would their desk be clean or messy? And every time you answer a question like this for your character, you are one step closer to writing your story. And it's going to be great. Now I just need to do this for all of my main characters in my story, and I'll catch up with you all tomorrow. Another day, another chance to write. I mean, of course, we aren't ready to write yet, but we have more things that we can plan out to get ready for writing. But today we're going to tackle the world of our story. Now, just so you know, planning a world is more than just figuring out a map and the names for a bunch of places. We're going to make a lot of important decisions in this stage of planning regarding how unique and interesting the world is going to be. And let's start where it makes sense. I'm writing a fantasy story, so maybe I do want to start with a map. And there are dozens of different ways to go about creating a map. Maybe I want to go old-fashioned with pen and paper. And there's a ton of great tutorials out there on finding a good style for things like your mountains and your coastlines and your rivers and your forests. But why go slow when you can go fast? Using software like Incarnate, you can more quickly put together beautiful maps that fit your world. I could spend days making these maps. You see, when I'm going through these kinds of steps in planning, I'm imagining how incredible my story is going to be, how rich my world and my characters will seem when I finally start writing. There are all kinds of things I need to figure out in this world. There's cultures and histories and geographies. Where should the roads of my map fall? And the capital of each kingdom, well, they need to be somewhere defensible and available for trade, because that's what would happen in real life. And there's all kinds of different decisions I still need to make. A fantasy world like mine can't use seconds and minutes, or inches and feet, or dollars and dimes. If this world is going to truly feel unique, then I have to start from scratch. But hey, you know what? That's the fun part. I mean, every time you answer a question like this for your setting, you are one step closer to writing your story. Now, if you don't mind, I really need to focus on making this world feel believable. Whew, we've been doing a lot of planning, but I know that we're getting close to being able to write. You know, we're laying the foundation for a great novel. You have to figure out all of these details before you start writing, or else you'd be totally lost. You won't catch me being unprepared. So I feel pretty good about the planning that we've done so far. We've got characters and character sheets. We have a map that seems really grounded in reality. And I put a lot of thought into the cultures and people and the history of this world. Now we just need a plot for our story. Now, this planning stage for plot isn't just figuring out the events of your story. It's not just what's happening in the world, but it's also planning out your character journeys and your narrative threads and your setups and your payoffs and your foreshadowing and more. You have your characters and you have the setting. Now you just need to build that plot. You have the pieces and the board. Now you just got to come up with the game. There are so many places that you can start with in plot. You can look at a dozen of different plot frameworks, but I find it best to ignore these initially. You can pick up any of these dozens of writing books to help you plan a plot, but they are also typically trying to help you fit details into a framework. And plot frameworks are best used for organizing your ideas once you have them, but they don't usually help you plan right off the bat. So my recommendation, if you're new to planning a plot, is to understand what kind of story you want to tell. Now here you could break into different archetypes of story and into story theory, and maybe one day you will, but for now, I want you to think about your favorite stories of all time, whether it be Pirates of the Caribbean, or Indiana Jones, or Pride and Prejudice, or 2006's masterpiece, Step Up. In a lot of cases, the kind of story that you most enjoy reading or watching is the kind of story that you would enjoy writing. Now, I like to start with cinematic moments. I'll do a whole other video in the future about this kind of planning process, but the short version here is that I start by trying to picture the moments of my story where, if it were a movie, people would talk about while walking out of the theater. These are the moments of betrayal, big set pieces, climactic action, and surprises. And then I figure out where these kinds of moments would happen in the timeline of my story. Now, once you have details, then you can choose a plot framework and use that as a planning tool. And this helps you organize your rough idea of a plot into something that fits the accepted structure of stories today. A first act introduction, a second act of character interactions and raised stakes, and a third act of climax and resolution. Every plot framework is a variation of this in details and terms and structure. But now that I've planned the plot out as best I can, I realize that I need to change something about my characters to try to better reflect the themes of my plot. And the setting of my story feels too of the same. So I think I need to make some adjustments to the theology of the world and how the characters would fit into the class system. But then if I make changes there, then my plot will need to change slightly too. And then at some point, I'll likely need to redo this plot structure to better reflect those new characters. And so here I am, and that's how I got here. I thought I did everything right. I put in the work, I put in the time, I put in the effort, but I just couldn't start. It's almost like planning a story and writing are just completely different skills. Wait, maybe that's it. Of course, I mean, that makes total sense. Planning a story and looking at the overarching details and themes of a world is different than writing and exploring that world. Crazy analogy incoming. It's almost like how hitting a baseball and throwing a baseball are two different skills, but they exist in that same sport. And in order to be a great baseball player, you need to be able to do both. But one of these is a lot easier to practice than the other. It's a lot easier to go out there and practice hitting. And so you might be a lot better at hitting a ball than you might be at throwing a ball, simply because it's easier to practice. Look, planning a story is so much fun. And it's impossible to really, disappoint yourself when planning a story because you aren't committing to anything big. There's not a decision that you can make that you can't go back on. But with writing, there's this commitment that you make with your time, and there's the expectations that you set on yourself when you write. Are you writing in some way that's good enough? Do you look back on what you wrote and feel blah about it? It's a lot harder to practice your writing than it is to practice planning your story. And so you might have gotten really good at planning worlds and characters and plot movements and these big cinematic scenes. But can you say you've put the same amount of time into practicing your writing? That is what's keeping you in planning hell. You feel good about your planning, but you don't feel the same about your writing. Why would you stop doing something that you're confident in and start doing something that you're worried you won't succeed in? The good news is that we can fix this. You can fix this. You just need to start writing your proto draft. Take all of those anxieties in your head about how you need to start a story and just start writing. Let it be less than perfect. I always start with a temporary beginning, something that I know I'll come back to and change or fix, but it means I can start writing and get to the meat and potatoes of my story. Because that's where you find out who your characters are, how they interact with each other, how they experience the world that they're in, and how they react to the events happening around them. If you think that you can plan every single detail and have things not go off the rails, then you've got a lot to learn. Your characters will come alive, and you won't be pushing them to make certain decisions. It's going to feel natural that your characters react to things in one way or another as you learn those characters, and the way that they react may not be the way that you planned. I'd hazard a guess that a lot of planning that you do in your world before you write has little to no effect on the final product of your story. That thought and effort that went into planning those details are largely forgotten or never important to the reader because those readers are wrapped up in your characters and their interactions more so than they are about your map or the architecture of this town. Now, I know what you're saying. The planning isn't necessarily for the reader. It's for you to create a well-rounded vision for the world that you're writing. And I get that, I really do. But I've seen it happen time and time again with emerging writers. The effort that goes into planning a world and its details means that a lot of unnecessary information about that world gets presented in the story because you put all of that effort in to plan it. You feel like you should use that information. You put in the effort and you like it, but keep it in mind, what does the reader need to know versus what do you want to show? And they don't always align. Planning hell can be overcome. And it could even be this video that does it for you. You can overcome planning hell right now by taking all that you've planned, keep it in mind, right? Put it in your head, internalize it, and start writing a proto draft. If you're part way through a draft and you feel stuck because plans have gone awry, then lean into it, just for now, just to see what happens. Go back to that draft, read over the last 2 or 3 chapters, and then write the next scene. You can even treat it like that temporary beginning that I do. This is just your first attempt to get back into the world. You can do it. If you like this video and you want more videos all about breaking down narrative content and stories in writing, then like this video and subscribe. We have an incredible community of writers waiting for you in our Discord. Over there, you can share bits of your writing for feedback, participate in writing challenges, and hang out with like-minded, writing-obsessed people. We'll see you there. And as always, thank you for watching.